Can you hear it okay? Thank you, ID Speakeasy. Now, at some point, I'm going to look to Michael to put together a dance for us so we can do a dance routine. No, maybe before the state opening day. No. Before we get started, though, man, there has been a lot of heavy stuff out. A lot of heavy stuff.
Yeah.
And I don't know about anybody else, but it is taking a toll. And sometimes I just forget to just breathe and just be for a second. So before we jump in with Jeff Pixley, who is going to take on Cole, I'm so excited about this one. Let's just take a moment and just center ourselves, take a few deep breaths, and just be for a minute, you know?
Like, oh, that feels so good. I feel like I forget to breathe all day.
Well, and just coming into community, you know, together. Like, I love this space because we are kind of laid back, you know, we are kind of like the Golden Girlish theme, you know.
For it all.
Oh, and it is just beautiful. But yeah, it's been extra heavy, especially this last couple of weeks. So tonight, our special guest is Jeff Pixley. He is running for United States Congress to replace Tom Cole in Oklahoma CD4. And, you know, when we first started hearing about some retired person, can't give a name yet. No, we can't tell anything. Everything's top secret. But he's got a big background in military. So my first thoughts were, oh my God, no, not another, you know, yes person, establishment person. But getting to know you a little bit, getting to talk to you a little bit, listening to your videos, watching your videos, seeing you out there, you know, Saturday, Sunday, whatever day that all the days run together, you know, protesting with us. I gotta say, woohoo, you know, Tom Cole should have a heck of a run. So thank you for coming on. If you want to take a minute and introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about yourself, and then don't know who has first question, but we'll get to that after.
You bet. So first of all, thank you for hosting me and for having this platform. It was only about 6 weeks ago that I really started taking TikTok seriously. And I have to admit, because I was skeptical at first, I thought it was just, you know, cat videos and nonsense. There is so much great content here, and I hope they don't ruin it with whatever's happening next with the changes. But this is phenomenal, and thank you for giving me an opportunity to be here. It may not surprise anybody, you know, watching, to know that the earned media for a Democrat in Oklahoma is really hard to come by through traditional media, right? My phone is not ringing. The Oklahoma, in fact, on Sunday, I was interviewed by a reporter from the Oklahoman up in Oklahoma City at that music festival we were at together. And nothing came of the interview. He was very nice, but he said, have you not been interviewed by us before? I said, nope. He said, well, I'll give your information to our political desk. And guess what? 3 days later, nothing, crickets. Which is amazing to me, and I know I'm skipping the introduction. I'll get to that, I promise. But given there's a story of national importance with the Senator Mark Kelly story that is catching news all the time, just for the purpose of generating readership, you think they would be hungry for a national story nexus, and that's me. I'm an Air Force officer, retired, who is just as threatened by these First Amendment stifling overreaches by the Secretary of Defense as Mark Kelly is. I just haven't been sued yet. I haven't been arrested yet. I haven't had my pay, but it could happen tomorrow. Someone could knock at the door, depending on how I choose my words. Someone could knock on my door tomorrow. Honestly, that might be helpful for my campaign for attention, but I don't want to go to jail. So anyway, my name is Jeff Pixley. I'm a 53-year-old Democrat. But I start with Democrat because I want to make sure people know that I'm not hiding I'm a Democrat. But you should know, if I'm being honest with you, until September 1st, that's not how I identified day to day. When I met people, I talked about me being a colonel in the Air Force and someone who's spent his whole adult life serving in the military. And while I was a Democrat that whole time, that's not what drove me. And partisan politics is not what I'm about. It is now, but it's not what I was about. So I don't have deep political ties. I don't have anybody in the party that's my mentor or coach. I don't have some benefactor who's coaching me through this or making sure that I get, all the breaks. I'm just a guy who aligns with the Democratic Party and is passionate about public service. So the short version of my story, and we can explore it in detail if you like later in the show. But I was, over my 35-year career, I moved 15 times, raised a family. My wife and kids went through all that craziness all those years. After jobs, flying fighters and going to combat, being a commander down at Air Force Basic Training in San Antonio, working for Air Force One, and being a commander at some really important places. My final assignment was here to the University of Oklahoma in Norman. And it's this great job where you get to, I was the commander of the Air Force ROTC unit there, at a professor at OU, and it's this amazing gig where you get to, in kind of the sunset of your career. It's the last job for a colonel, to get to raise and develop and grow and mentor the next generation of officers that are about to replace you. Like the baton, you're handing the baton to them, and someone who has really considers deep in my heart I'm an airman through and through. That is just a blessing to get a chance to feel like you're making that real difference, and knowing that the organization will be in good hands as I go drift into retirement. So that's supposed to be a 3-year gig. I was a year and a half into that gig when I woke up on the morning of February 15th of last year. So we're 11 months out. I'm going to have a big event on the anniversary of this moment, because it's so important in my life. But I woke up on a Saturday morning in February. And I flipped open the news on my phone, and it reported that the president had fired the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, General C.Q. Brown. He had fired Admiral Lisa Franchetti, who ran the Navy, and he had fired, this is the part that most alarmed me, honestly, he'd fired the lawyers on top of all the branches of service whose job it is to make sure that the orders that come down to those of us at the field level and, well below me, were constitutional, proper, etc. And when I read that, my mind started spinning. I'm thinking about, what are the possibilities here? Knowing what I know about this administration, what they've already said in the first just 30 days, less than 30 days of the administration, and the style and the approach that they're taking, what might this mean? And the answers that I came up with were terrifying. They were bad answers. I'm like, I'm at a crossroads here. I have a year and a half left. Am I going to be able to live up to my core values, honor my oath of office, and continue to serve without sacrificing the things that make me who I am, and without being a conflict with the things I was literally teaching to my students? I was sitting, we were a month into the semester at that point. I had already taught the class on the Constitution and the oath of office. I told them how it would be, and they'd ask me, what's it like to serve under President Trump? They literally asked me in a class before this moment. They'd asked me in a class, hey, sir, what about unlawful orders? I'd already had that conversation with them. So this Saturday morning, I read that news and my head was spinning. I'm like, I don't know if I can stick around here. And then I looked at the calendar. I thought, well, shoot, if I stick around all the way till my planned retirement date in 2026, that means I'm going to have to sit out the 2026 midterm elections. And although you're allowed to vote as a military officer, your civic duty, partisan political politics is not part of the deal. So you don't do that. So I wouldn't have been able to play any role in the 2026 midterms if I stuck around, other than my lone vote. So I came to the conclusion, and about an hour later, my wife woke up and I said, honey, I've got news. We're retiring. And I made that decision that morning. And it is, aside from the decision to ask my wife out on a date back in 1990, it's the best decision I ever made, because Not only did it free me to do this thing that I found a passion for, but history has proven that my timing couldn't have been better. Because fast forward to my retirement date on September 1st, at midnight, September 1st, I was sitting right here and I became a civilian, and I posted a essay on Substack called The Oath of Office, a 2,000 word essay you probably don't want to take the time to read. You should, but you don't have to. Spoiler alert, about halfway through that essay, I talk about not following unlawful orders. And 24 hours after I published that, we were bombing the boats in Venezuelan waters. I literally got out just in time, and I never had to do something that violated my oath of office, which is a good thing. I didn't plan originally to run for office. That was not my intent. But as I researched it and I realized that if I didn't, we were going to once again nominate someone who wasn't ready, and we were going to get our asses kicked yet again in the 4th district. And I looked in the mirror and I thought, well, maybe. And I asked my friends, hey, am I crazy? And they said, yes, but you should still do it. So here I am. I'm 5 months into this. I'm more fired up every day. The enthusiasm's been great. The feedback has been phenomenal. Often people say you can't win, and my feedback to that is, yeah, not with that attitude, we can't. But I'm bound and determined to convince people that this is a winnable race. And as you already alluded to, Tom Cole's never faced an opponent like me, not once in his career, and he's gonna be very surprised when the Oklahoman finally publishes a story about me.
Yes. Oh my goodness. That is amazing. So you actually answered one of my questions right off the bat, because I was like, what's that motivating point in your life? And you're like, well, the news came on. It's kind of like how we started organizing Okies, so Lisa. Inauguration days. Boop. We got to come up with a name. So Jeff, I'm just going to say I'm a little biased. My dad's also a retired officer, retired colonel, base commander back in the 70s out of McConnell. All that I know. So I'm very, very like, ooh, I love him already. But, kind of like Lisa, we were like, okay, what's this game plan? What's going on? And the more we hear and listen and see and you speak, we're like, oh, we really like him. Like, this is going to be an amazing race. So we're really honored that you did get to come on and visit with us and do the show with us today. So I appreciate that. I'm just going to rip the Band-Aid off, because before I even logged in today, right, your phone's going off like Iran, Greenland, this, that, and like, I cannot catch my breath. So coming from that the military background, I mean, I have so many things in my head that I'm like, is this really happening right now? I'm pretty sure I texted Lisa one today going, am I dreaming? Am I awake yet? So kind of with your background, right? I don't even know how to put it into words. What are you going to be able to do? Like, how are you going to help Oklahomans once you get up there? Because it's affecting the vets here in our state, right? So many things, Jeff, so many things. What are you going to be able to do? Do you have a plan to be able to help us, help our vets, help us help our vets, right? As somebody that works in that field, I see it a lot, and it's heartbreaking. So
yeah, that's a totally fair question. And I think it's worth being honest. And I'm sure that, the people who watch this know this, but I think it's worth saying that, I'm not under any illusions that replacing Tom Cole in Congress does not mean I'm replacing him as the chair of the House Appropriations Committee, right? As a freshman congressman, the Democratic Party is going to find a place for me. Hopefully they'll recognize my experience and figure out a way to make good use of my talents and education. So maybe armed services, possibly, although that's probably a tall order. I'm really interested in a couple of things. Number one, and if you've seen my walk card, I can't remember if I've handed you one of my walk cards, but this is not a sexy thing, and it's certainly not a bumper sticker. But the most important role I'm going to play when I get to Congress is take a stand for our U.S. Constitution. And I know that sounds pie in the sky, but what I mean by that is, for years, we have been letting the executive branch accumulate power. And this is not a unique to President Trump thing. I'm sad to report this has been happening for a long time. Congress has been weak. The courts have been at minimum standing by, and so much power is accumulated in the executive branch that today, with a president who has no compunction about using that power to its full effect, for his purposes, for political purposes, for his personal purposes, and maybe to give some potential love, maybe for purposes of doing good things for our country. And the fact is, the president is not the emperor. Our Constitution is not meant to have one person making all decisions. And even if President Trump made an amazing decision and something that benefited directly every person in Oklahoma, but if he skipped Congress or ignored the courts or both on his way to doing it, that would be wrong. We have a system and we're supposed to follow it. And by not following it, we're asking for trouble and we're setting terrible precedents. So when I get to Congress, my first priority, and the way I describe myself is as a trauma surgeon. And, maybe that's because I've been binging The Pit. But when a case comes into the trauma room, the goal of the team is to keep the patient alive and stabilize it so it can go get the treatment it needs for its overall long-term health. That's the way I look at myself as a politician. I don't have dreams of being in Washington, D.C. for 25 years. Far from it. I promised my wife we'd have a retirement together doing the cool stuff we had to skip while we were traveling the world. So my goal is to be the trauma surgeon, stabilize the patient, and then hand it off to the plastic surgeons and other folks who do the specialty stuff to make it pretty again. We need to make it survive. So oversight matters. And that touches on all the other topics, right? Our oversight, good oversight, and holding the executive branch accountable and exerting the first article congressional legislative rules would have prevented the gutting of the VA, would have prevented this foray into Venezuela, which has not been approved by Congress. And this isn't just rumor mill. This isn't just Jeff making it up. This is based on what the president himself said, that he did not inform Congress, and his excuse was, well, they leaked. Well, that's not an excuse not to follow the law and the Constitution. So when I get to Congress, we are going to stop the bleeding, and I'm not going to be able to do it by myself. But let's not fool ourselves. If Jeff Pixley's getting sworn in, Jeff Pixley's part of a blue wave, right? Sorry, I talked about myself in the third person after I listened to that. It's not good. Put that out. If I'm in Congress, it's because there's been a blue wave, and I will be surrounded by people who have either taken advantage of this opportunity by just good luck and timing, or just as angry as I am and passionate about it. That mix matters because not everybody is there for the same reasons. I'm not throwing spears at any one politician, I promise you. But there are people who go to Washington, D.C. or seek office. They may not even think they're going to get elected. They're doing it because they want to build their reputation back home, because they have a law practice that they know is going to shoot into the moon when everybody remembers their name. That, those people will be there too. It doesn't mean they can't be of help, but I'm looking for people like me who are there, which means veterans, people who have sacrificed already for this country, that are there for the right reasons. And this may alarm some people on your watching your show, but that it's going to include Republicans too. There are Republicans out there who are just as mad as I am, and while we disagree on some political issues, that's okay. As long as we agree what the Constitution means and what our role is and what our government should look like, I can work with any Republican who acts in good faith, and I'm going to have to lock arms with them, and because we're not going to be able to save this patient just by ourselves. And the Democrats would be foolish if they took a blue wave election and then spent the first 6 months or a year in the next Congress dunking on Republicans, saying now it's our turn to impose our will on you. That's how we got in this mess in the first place. That kind of party-focused politics instead of service-focused politics.
That makes sense.
Oh, that's awesome.
Unlike what he said.
Michael?
Perfect. I'll lead into it too. So, Jeff, I am in your district, and I'm glad that you're running, because I was like, so glad that I don't have to run now. Somebody has to. I think everybody's tired of Mr. Tom Cole. So I am glad somebody is running, somebody worthwhile, and I'm glad that person is you. So kudos for that. So I know you kind of touched on unlawful orders and this blue wave. Once that happens, because it will happen, so I have faith that a lot of people are are tired. And given the current administration and their actions that they're happening right now, they're sending in ICE to break up protests, peaceful protests. What's your plan to protect the Norman residents for the peaceful protests? Because I'm just right down the road. They like to do that on the bridge, and I'm just worried that they're going to bring in military, they're going to bring in the ICE, and just to break that up. So, do you have a plan for that?
Yeah, so my short-term plan while campaigning is to be out there on the bridge, and that's what I was doing on Saturday. Not only was it inspiring to be around other folks who were outraged on what happened in Minneapolis, but if you were out there either up in Oklahoma City or down here in Norman, the number of kind of counter protest folks driving by, giving the finger, revving their motors, or rolling coal, that was really small, really small. And this wasn't a secret. Everybody knew we were going to be out there. That gives me hope that people kind of see. I wouldn't say there's a red line for everybody, but I think some people are like, yeah, I don't know if I'm going to be on board with this. So my plan right now is to show leadership, and we need to do that. All of us need to do that. Whether you're running for office or not, we need to demonstrate our resolve to push back against these overreaches. And the only way the government listens is if people stand up and have their voices heard. Unfortunately, our elected leaders in Oklahoma don't do public forums, so the only way they're going to hear about it is by seeing their streets clogged with people holding signs and saying no more. Once I get into office, the oversight begins, and we need immediate full. If it hasn't already happened by the time I get there, I'm going to be really pissed. But what needs to happen is, as fast as humanly possible, full, bipartisan, incredibly detailed investigations, oversight hearings for accountability for DHS. DHS needs to be their leadership and all of their the lieutenants down the chain, all the way to the people who are given orders at the tactical level on the streets, need to be brought in. They need to be sworn in, and they need to provide sworn testimony that explains what was their guidance, what are their rules of engagement, what are the rules of force, how are they getting paid, how are they getting hired, who's vetting them, who's training them, what internal mechanisms they have for discipline or for corrections when people stray from it. Because law enforcement's hard. I was raised by a police officer, and I have nothing but respect for law enforcement. For law enforcement that does a really hard job and does it the right way, it's always harder the right way, and it's always riskier doing it the right way. And I know there are probably good people in ICE, but they are led by and surrounded by and being managed in a way that's completely inconsistent with a free country, with our First Amendment rights to protest, and their very, very aggressive tactics are. I don't think they're an accident. I don't think when this investigation is complete that it's going to reveal that it was some rogue actor at the base level who just got out in front of his skis. This is a program. This is a program of oppression of American citizens. It's meant to instill fear, and it's not necessarily now, in my opinion, this is just Jeff Pixley's opinion, it's not just about immigration anymore. This is not about immigration. This is about control of us and having a force that is, it's not bigger than, but it's better funded than the United States Marine Corps. There's no person on earth that can convince me that it needs a budget that big if their whole goal is to find immigrants who have committed crimes while inside our borders. That's bullshit. They have a program they're undertaking, and this is step one. And I don't want to be alarmist, but if you know any history teachers, go talk to them and see what they think. That's who I would ask. Don't ask Fox News or some pundit. Don't ask me. Ask any history teacher, even the one who taught who was also the football coach. I promise they know what's happening right now.
Perfect. I kept nodding. I was like, yes, all of it. Makes me feel feel good to know that you are willing to uphold that freedom of speech.
I'm going to interrupt you, by the way. You said that you were glad to see me run because then you wouldn't have to. Here's what you need to know, man. I don't intend on sticking around a long time, and I've already promised people that when I get there, one of my first orders of business is to begin coaching and mentoring whoever's going to replace me, a find Democrat or Democrats who are on deck, because I'm not too old for this, this job. I would still be below average in age when I got to Congress, but I made a promise to my wife that we would get the second 35 years together, and I'm not breaking that promise to her. So watch out. I may be tapping you on the shoulder saying, join my staff here in the district, or come with me to DC so I can get you ready, because I need young people that are just as fired up as I am, that have more energy and better ideas and a perspective and a longer term view, right? My view, I try to have the 100-year view, but human nature is to think, in your own lifespan. If I'm lucky, I have 25 years left, right? So let's call it 30 years left. I need young people like you, and I don't know how old you are, but you on this tiny screen, you look much younger than me.
Perfect. Yeah, I'm ready and willing. Let's do it.
For real.
Let's make Oklahoma better again.
Right. And I'm just going to throw this out, Jeff, that that was something that Elisa and I have talked about since the very beginning, is like, we've done our time. We want to coach, mentor that next generation coming in, right? Like, I've been doing this since 88. Elisa's been doing this forever and a day. But that's what this is about, right? Like, our world is a trash fire. So what are we going to do to start fixing that, and then training the next group coming in, right?
Right. And they're to their, this is understandable. Many of them are incredibly disenchanted. They distrust politicians. They think that their individual voice doesn't matter. So it's really up to us, old people, to, lead by example, and inspire them and say, this is worth it. And to the extent we can, we will back you and support you. But we have to convince them that this is worth fighting for. And which is, that natural cynicism is the first enemy. The second one is another one that I think is more nefarious, and that is, we are now in a country where people are struggling to get by day to day, put food on the table, put a roof over the head, medical care, all those things. It's hard to carve out time to care about something that seems like is just, this amorphous group of bad people who make your life harder. And just focus on, keeping your core temperature warm, if I could use another medical analogy. So it's up to us. It's up to us to inspire them and say, no, this is worth it. Let me help you get there. But if we don't get our economy turned around to make some really quick turns on policy, I wouldn't be surprised if this whole generation, my kids and younger than them, my youngest is 27. So the people, 30 and younger right now, they could be forgiven for thinking, this is, the government's not for me, so I'm just going to try and survive. Survival's not what America's about. That's not what we're based on. We're supposed to thrive.
Right. I did see in the comments where somebody said something about OHP, like, why was OHP calling? Because Stint federalized our Oklahoma Highway Patrol, and they're now working with ICE. That is why.
Oh, is that right? I missed that. When did that happen?
Yeah, so that was in the comments. I just saw that where they said something about why was ICE calling, like, you're in Stillwater. I'm like, that's why, because the OHP has been federalized by our governor, because he already wanted his own militia. Y'all remember that?
Yeah. Well, and here's another thing. This is one of those really kind of, I'll be careful in my language here. If the president's threat to defund every state from federal dollars who has any sanctuary cities inside it, if he follows through on that threat and withholds those funds, he has already proven himself willing to then redistribute funds to those who have his favor. And if that's true, and Governor Stitt receives this, unbudgeted, out of nowhere suitcase full of money for Oklahoma, it's only going to reinforce the bad behavior. And that's the problem with this system. That's not based on the rules. It's not based on the Constitution. It's based on party loyalty and what amounts to a patronage system, where how successful you are politically or economically, how well your state does, is based entirely upon how successfully you impress the president. And when you go to the White House and you genuflect before him and say, sir, may I please? That's not how the government's supposed to work. But I fear that's what it's turning into.
Right. It feels like. Oh, yeah. Michael, you
So
got it?
amazing points. Oh my gosh. And I gotta say something about the youngsters real quick because three of us are Gen Xers here. And I don't know about you guys, but I very distinctly remember being taught to save the whales with our pennies. It was a worldwide thing we did. Farm aid, all these things. And then it was like the Berlin Wall came down, and then they're like, okay, we got it from here. Leave us alone. Y'all go to work, right? And raise your family. That's what you're supposed to be doing. And totally discouraged us from participating in any real way in politics. And it looked at the time, I'm talking 90s ish, before the Oklahoma City bombing anyway, that things were okay. It was being handled. Democracy was going to be fine. And then to wake up and find out, oh no, we're not.
Right.
No, we're not. And we've trained these generations now of turning away from looking. Don't talk about politics. Don't talk about religion, all of these things. So nobody actually knows how to have these discussions without screaming at each other. And I think these kids all have PTSD at this point. Yeah.
That's a really important point that I think is undermade in these conversations. And TikTok, I was given some TikTok love earlier. Let me back off on that just slightly and say TikTok is also filled with people that have monetized rage, and they've created a world where the payoff is that how many people are on the screen or how many people are watching, how much anger is developed, and that's not helping. And we have a social media. I don't know if I'm allowed to say this on TikTok. I'll say it carefully. Social media is one of those things that is a potentially cancerous element in our society. And while it can be good, it's like chemotherapy or radiation treatment can be good, but it also be very bad. Well, I think we've aimed it at the wrong spot and we're leaving it on too long. Right? that's my chemotherapy my radiation therapy reference. We have the First Amendment is something that we hold sacred. I certainly do, and I'll defend it to my dying breath. But it's also our soft underbelly, and our adversaries know that. And people within our country are not our adversaries, but are essentially for the breakdown of this rules-based order we have in the country as we imagined it. They know that they can divide us easily now using social media tricks and algorithms. And the only defense, there's only really two defenses against that, and one is unrealistic. The unrealistic one is shut off social media and stop injecting this stuff into our veins. I don't think that's realistic. The cat's out of the bag, the toothpaste is out of the tube. The second option is to take a breath, kind of like we did at the beginning of the show. Do some box breathing for a second, and then remind yourself that your neighbor is not your enemy. Your neighbor is never your enemy. Start from the perspective of this person, even if we disagree significantly. They're a human being. They are the product of their own upbringing. Every decision they make has a rational explanation in their own mind. And if we approach it with a little bit of grace and understanding and humanity, we might be able to break down some of these barriers. It'll be hard and it's frustrating. It sucks sometimes to be the one who takes the high ground. But I promise you, we are not going to get out of this by screaming at each other. It's not going to happen.
Right.
Feels like that 6'9", right? Depends on your perspective. And we can both talk about that without having to do all of the things that we have been conditioned to do from, elementary school. So I appreciate that. Thank you so much. Michael? Oh, you're muted.
Oh.
I know how to work. I promise. So I know a lot of things on a lot of Normanites' mind is our drinking water. awful. Is there is there a plan for you to continue with making sure we have access to clean water and making sure that water is cleaned up?
Yeah, so obviously, as you know, that's mostly a state matter. Although the EPA, such that it still exists by the time I get to Congress in 2027, probably has a role to play there. I was at a great session. The speaker at there's a local thing we do here in Norman called Cornbread Conversations, and we had a speaker who was an expert from OU talked about stormwater and protecting the water in Lake Thunderbird from runoff. Right now, we have a system where we essentially allow Thunderbird to get polluted, and then we filter the water that we take out of it, rather than doing much effort to keep it from getting polluted in the first place, which is a shame. But it's about money, and the problem is, as he explained it, and this was a great conversation, by the way. He wrote a book that I've forgotten the name of it, but it's probably worth looking for. As we expand, humans tend to expand into space, and Norman has allowed expansion across that ridge line that where the aquifer drains either into Canadian River or into Lake Thunderbird. As we expanded over there, we create a world where lawns, stormwater, fertilizer from people's yards and whatnot runs into Lake Thunderbird. We have to tackle that. I fear that there will be one day a world where we can't drink the water out of Lake Thunderbird. I don't want that world. I have a well on my property here, which is weird. I live in central Norman essentially, but for some reason I have a well. So I'm on city water, but I have a well. I don't drink my well water because I know that the groundwater here is not ideal. But the EPA has a responsibility to protect people from environmental damage and to stop it from happening in the first place. A larger question about water to me is, and this may be radical, I don't know, I haven't polled this, but I think those things that are fundamental to keeping us alive, like air and water, should not cost any money. So I don't know if there's a political solution, a rational solution, or an affordable one that puts free, clean, healthy water reliably into everybody's homes. But that's something we should strive for, because how can we claim to be a country that cares about people's life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness if we force them to pay out of their pockets and have a job to have a sip of water? That doesn't make any sense to me.
I agree more. I love that.
So much.
All right.
My cat decided to come visit, so priorities. So I know we talk about the vet concern, you being one. I also come from a background of mental health and substance use. And I have seen over the years, like how literally here in Oklahoma, how we have built up our veteran services to now watch it slowly decline. And so I know one time we had an active duty service member got brought to us by accident because they have specific programs. However, with our declining veteran services in Oklahoma, what are some things that you're going to be able to do to help us Oklahomans help our veterans?
That's a great question. I'll start by saying thank goodness for the veteran service organizations, the volunteer organizations that are helping bridging the gap. A personal example for me. So when I was applying for retirement, for approaching retirement, you have to go through the VA claims process if you're eligible to make a claim, or believe you are. And the way it's supposed to work is you work with a person from the VA to work that out. And up at Tinker Air Force Base, which is in my district just north of here, there were two people whose full-time job it was to take care of us. So when I reached out to them to initiate my VA claim, the guy who I was supposed to send the information to, because they split the alphabet in half. So I sent my stuff to the guy for my half of the alphabet. And I got an out of office reply that said, "I've taken the buyout, smell you later." And he gave the name of the other guy. So I sent my stuff to the other guy. I said, "Hey, I guess you're the guy now." He said, "Yep, gotcha." And I'm like, okay, that's not terrible, I guess. I didn't think the buyout was a great plan, but at least I'm being taken care of. About a week later, he writes me back, and it writes actually as an email to a lot of people. Said, sorry, I'm completely overwhelmed. I cannot take care of you. We're not doing new claims, so you're going to have to go be on your own. So I was forced, because of the buyout cut to the VA that overwhelmed the office at Tinker, which is a massive base in a urban area. I was forced to go to a local VSO. They took great care of me, but they shouldn't have to exist, right? Some organizations shouldn't have to exist, and taking care of our veterans ought not to be one of those things. They took great care of me, but if that's happening to a colonel in an urban area, what must it be like for a young enlisted person? Because you don't have to be retiring to have VA claims. You just have to be leaving the military. There are lots of people that have a VA claim. What about some young E3 leaving the service in a rural area,
Right.
from a base in eastern New Mexico, or somebody that's leaving Fort Sill, leaving their enlistment's over and they're done at Fort Sill? How in the world are they going to be taken care of? Because I consider myself a pretty smart, educated guy. It was without the VA service center volunteer help, I couldn't have done it. So we need to staff. We need to staff and fund the VA to keep the promise to our veterans. And if there's ways to make it more efficient and include private businesses into it, I'm for that. There's hardly a dollar not worth spending to protect veterans, because the generation that was last drafted is almost gone. That's my parents' generation, right? They're the oldest generation now, in numbers. There are millions of people who have only ever served in the all volunteer force. And if you volunteered to serve your country, if you need services from the VA that you're entitled to, it shouldn't be a painful process that requires you to bend over backwards or get an associate's degree in government interaction to be taken care of. It should be automatic. It should be easy. It should be reliable. And if we're ever going to overspend on something or be over generous or liberal on a program, I think taking care of veterans gets my nod, but I'm biased.
Well, and I feel like if you're going to encourage people to sign up to serve in the military, you might treat the people that have already served halfway decent. So why would I see what you're doing to veterans now, so why would I'm not a young person, but if I was, why would I want to serve, right?
Don't even get me started. I struggle with this right now and nobody's asked me, so I can't prove this. But I know if someone were to come to me tomorrow and said, I'm thinking my son wants to join the Army, or my son wants to join the Air Force, should he? I honestly don't know how I'd answer that question today. And I love the Air Force like few things in this world. And I loved every minute I was in the Air Force for the most part. And I got a lot out of being in there, and a lot of satisfaction and adventure and all that shit. But right now, not just with the VA is part of it, but the pay, the stress, the uncertainty, and the decisions that are being made, the disrespect with which they're being treated, and potentially, and this is really galling to me, the attack on DEI by Secretary Hegseth that began right when he took office. His first public speech after he was confirmed happened in Washington, D.C. at Fort McNair in a room that I've sat in before. And his, I'm going to misquote him, but it's going to be close. He said, our diversity is our strength. No dumber words have ever been said in the English language, or something to that effect. That from the jump, he was looking at the young men and women, African American, gay and lesbian and transgender troops in the face and saying, "You're not worthy." That's the impression I got as a straight white male old guy. When he spoke at Quantico on the 30th of September to all the generals and the senior most enlisted folks, he all but accused, in fact, I would say he did accuse the African American leaders in that room of getting there by not by their merit and not by their character and not by their effort, but by some fast track program reserved for brown people. That nobody walked out of that room when they were given the opportunity still haunts me. I don't understand it. I know people in that room. I was friends with several people who were in that room, and I've given them the courtesy of not asking them, because me asking them would be essentially an accusation of them not being fit. But I don't know how to answer the question about joining the military. I hope I would find a way to convince them. But I'm currently mentoring someone that's a budding officer on their way to the Air Force, and I want to find a way for them to be successful. But I fear that they're going to enter a service that's so different than from my own, led by people who've been given a permission structure to be biased, a permission structure that allows for some of the ugliness of the kind of Vietnam era and earlier military of, if not segregated, certainly a caste system within it, aside from the officer versus enlisted one, which is kind of a natural thing. It's very troubling to me, and I hope I'm wrong. I hope I'm overreacting, but I kind of feel like my fourth kid is the United States Air Force.
So Candace J, who's one of our own, also a veteran, said, "Don't forget the female soldiers."
Yes, I'm sorry if I left out women. That was an unintentional oversight, and I've been led by and fought with, that is fought beside some amazing women. And I mentioned up front that when Admiral Franchetti, I didn't say this overtly, but just to clarify, I believed at the time that General Brown was fired because he's African American. I believed at the time that Admiral Franchetti was fired because she was a woman. Full stop.
Full stop.
Yeah, and thank you for those frank answers. I'm a caregiver for my uncle, who's a Vietnam era veteran, and he had his bladder removed last April. Went through a lot of complications, and there hasn't been a week go by where he hasn't just begged to, not be here anymore, because, and going through, he filed for the extra 20% disability back in May, and his case still hasn't been worked. And that was through a volunteer organization. It is tough out there. So, we could do a lot better. We were on track to do a lot better. I think that's what's so upsetting. So many people fought so hard for our firefighters, for all of those people, our military, and then to be squished like a bug by a dictator.
Right.
Well,
and I fear, I saw some news in the last couple of months that it seems to me there are indications and warnings that they're coming after VA disability claims. And if they are, I admit this is a fact. I know this because I went through this when I was going through my VA claim process. I was approached by someone who wanted to sell me their services, and they were effectively promising that I'd get 100% permanent and total. And I'm not 100% permanent and total. I knew I wasn't 100% permanent and total. I have some of the standard wear and tear that comes with being in the Air Force for 35 years. And I object to those people who are out there gaming the system, but we can't let the fact that those things exist and some people are unscrupulous and seek a higher claim than they are really entitled to. We can't break the whole system over that. That's like this fraud claim in Minnesota thing. We can't, as the government looks for ways to cut corners because they'll do anything except raise taxes on billionaires, right? They'll do anything, and they'll throw millions of veterans under the bus to do it. I really hope that they don't start yanking away VA claims or doing some investigation or doing. I can imagine. I hope this isn't true. I'm not starting a rumor here. I'm just saying, how easy it'd be for a Doge-like effort to go walk in and say, you know what, we could save X amount of dollars if we decreased everybody's disability claim. The highest is 100. We're going to take the highest is now 70, and now you can tell us how adversely impacted you are through filing paperwork next year when you can see how it works. That would save billions of dollars a year, and it would be devastating. And it would be devastating to people like your uncle and to untold other people in all age groups, because it's not just old people that are affected by this. There are people that spend 2 weeks in the military and are 100% permanently disabled because of service-related disability.
Right. It's crazy. I don't know why your height being an issue is in the comments. I just caught a glimpse of. I just got a glimpse of that. Yeah.
I mean,
I know. It's
you know,
like,
people be
I got
weird these
distracted. I'm
days.
sorry. I
You
was like,
gotta get it out while you can. Now, I did see a whole bunch of comments about APAC, and I happen to know your stance on this because I've seen your lives. So, if you would like to take a moment and let the viewers know what your stance is on APAC money.
You bet. I'm not going to take any corporate money, and I'm not taking any foreign influence money, including APAC. And not that they're offering yet, but I eventually think they will. Lockheed Martin, who makes my beautiful F-16, they may one day want to get me on their payroll, because then they know that they can count on me. That's not how it's going to work for me. I'm not going to be bought. I'm fundraising from individual donors. There may exist PACs that are issue based PAC that I might be willing to take money from, but no corporate, and certainly no foreign interest, not APAC. So I'm doing this $5-10 at a time from everywhere that is willing to listen to me. That's why TikTok is so great, and this is where I very shamelessly take this thing that's not in my text and just slowly raise up on the screen so people can see. That is how we are going to make this happen. And I know there's only a handful of people here, and some of you already know me, but when this clips out, and people are like, who's this guy in Oklahoma, and is he taking APAC? No, I'm not taking APAC money. But that doesn't mean this campaign isn't going to cost near $1 million for me. Tom Cole's going to spend $6 million on his campaign. There's no chance I'm going to outspend him. I could win the lottery tomorrow, and I wouldn't outspend him, because I don't believe in self-funding either. That's probably something else we're talking about. Candidates are allowed to give as much money as they want to their own campaign. There's no limit on that spending. And I'm not wealthy, but I could certainly have gotten my campaign off to a much bigger start if I just decided to give myself $50,000. I'm not doing that, because if the limit for individual contribution is $3,500, it's $3,500, which means that I've capped myself. That's the max I will ever give to my campaign. And if that means I lose, that means I lose. It means I was a bad candidate. So that means that I'm going to be fundraising from people all through the district in the kind of $5 to $10 a month category. And as this spreads out, I need people to appreciate that there's not enough $5 donations in the 4th district to fill my campaign coffers. I need to fundraise outside the district. I need to fundraise outside the state. In fact, I ran a report today, and I have across the country, I've gotten donations from lots of states, not all states, but eventually that will be. So a legit question someone might ask is, would someone who lives in Miami or in Fresno, California, or in Sheboygan give a crap about Tom Cole's opponent as a Democrat when they have their own troubles at home? Here's why. Tom Cole is one of the most powerful members of Congress. Just ask him. And he is failing in his job, and he is hurting the whole country, not just the 4th district. Because he's in that powerful position, every person in America should care that he gets run out of office. And it sends a powerful message when a challenger from what is typically thought of as a very red state gets funding from across the country. So what I would ask folks to do is consider going to other places than TikTok, because I can't spend roses and boxing gloves. Go to other places than TikTok and ask yourself, is $10 a month worth, or is our democracy worth $10 a month? And I can't promise you we're going to win, but I can promise you that I'm not in this to get to almost do it. I'm in this to fight and win. And I'm not going to spend a penny that I don't have to. It's not going to be for a fancy suit. It's not going to be for a fancy party or expensive liquor to dazzle people. It's to put people on doorsteps, to put stuff in people's mailboxes, and bring a fight to Tom Cole, so we can keep this thing alive for at least the rest of my life. Maybe for my kids too. That'd be great.
right. That would be great. Love it.
Perfect. I do have one question I want to slip in before we run out of time. So I work in property management, and I am dying to know if you would back stronger tenant laws and assistant programs here in Norman.
What do you mean by stronger tenant laws? You mean the rights of tenants for due process and notice for evictions and other protections? Absolutely. I
Correct.
mean,
Yes.
I'm not a all landlords are scum kind of guy, but I do recognize that if you are not the owner of your home, if you're a renter, you are at the mercy of some other person. You are paying their mortgage in many cases, their whole mortgage plus, including the property taxes. Often you're asked to maintain the home in a way that is effectively free labor. And the prospect of losing your place in that apartment or home is something that's so wildly disruptive to your life that it ends up putting you at a disadvantage just from a market perspective, right? So you're not, it's hard to argue that someone is in a co-equal marketing or negotiation position as a tenant. So I think there are certainly rules that should be in place to provide for folks to make sure they're not being exploited. But I do also recognize, I've seen Pacific Heights. I know that that if you're renting out your home, you have to be able to protect your property and your own investment. So there's a balance there, but we need to, if we take a humanity first approach, maybe backing up before, like just think if these are humans first, and if there's if we have to be if someone must be evicted, what is a city or municipalities? And of course, this isn't a congressional thing, although there could be a funding nexus here. If someone is being evicted, is there a social worker or services people standing there ready to help transplant them, move them into a safe place so their kids can still be in the same school, arrange transportation and jobs? If that is not part of the deal, if it's just the sheriff showing up and throwing their stuff in the yard, that's not the humanity focused approach. That's about protecting the landowners and the people with more power. And I think we can do both. It's not too much to ask to do both. Let's just remember these are humans, whether or not they look like us, speak our language, or even from this country originally. Imagine that.
Right. I know a lot of time with that, like with their it's very expensive to be poor. And I don't think I can say that enough, is it's very expensive to be poor.
Right. There's a great book. If you haven't read it, find Nickel and Dimed. I can't remember the name of the author. Nickel and Dimed is an incredible book written by a woman who did I can't remember how long the experiment was. It was a months-long experiment where she took only entry-level minimum wage jobs and tried to survive. And she wrote about it. It was incredible and heartbreaking. Okay. So Nickel and Dimed, I highly recommend it. You can listen to it.
I lived it. I lived it and raised kids in it, for some of their life. I just kept falling up and taking out student loans and going back to school and kept trying. My goodness, it is expensive.
Yeah.
So I did want to say in 2016, Bernie showed us that $33 you could run individual donations of $33 could run a pretty successful presidential campaign, regardless of what you thought about the election. So, I'm just thinking the Pixley 26 for 26 should run a hell of a, congressional campaign.
Absolutely. It rhymes. It's the year that we're doing it. It's one of my Act Blue choices. When you go to my Act Blue page, I think 26 is one of the choices you can select. That was on purpose. But it does need to be everywhere. And that's the thing is, please, if you don't, if you get nothing else out of this, it's spread the word. And, Americans love celebrity, right? And I think James Tallarico is amazing. I think he's an incredible speaker. I think he's a great public servant. And if he's elected to Congress, Texas will be well served by him. But not every candidate has the star power and immediate backing and bankrolling of James Tallarico. He raised almost $4 million in his first 3 months running. And now Texas needs that kind of money. That's true. But the truth is the money comes out of the woodwork once someone meets this unpublished secret threshold of attractiveness. And I'm never going to, my attractiveness as physically is never going to get there, no matter how many hairstyles I do. But
we heard you had a doppelganger.
I got my hair did today. It's amazing now. Patriots. But I think people getting inspired by the attractiveness of someone's ideas and having faith in them as a leader is something that can resonate. But celebrity rules in America, so I will freely admit that if right now in the middle of this live my caller ID popped up and it was the I've Had It podcast ladies, I would hang up on you without apologies. Because that's what we need, right? And I would explain later, but I would do that as fast as my thumbs can move, because we can't even come close to competing with on a wing and a prayer. And I need a team. I have a really small team right now. I've been very economical, and my financials are published. My reports due next month. You'll see my second quarter financials come out. You will see.
We already looked at yours.
Did you? Yeah. So
Yeah, of course we did.
And, I mean, I gotta say, I actually was pretty impressed by the amount of money that you've raised and how you spent it so far. I was like, oh my gosh, this is so clean.
Right?
Yeah.
Like,
I'm
where's
trying,
the millions in
35 years in
consulting
military
fees we're so
teaches you
used
that
to?
every penny is tracked, and you don't spend a penny that does not absolutely necessary. So I'm not building any gilded ballrooms on the back of my house with your campaign contributions.
Yeah. No, I love that. I love that. Now, for those, I have Tom Cole. Hold on. I have TomColeSucks.com, but I've been working more on my song.
oh my gosh, can't think of it.
Oh my goodness. Okay, so if they don't have money to donate, which it looks like there's at least 2 that's already donated, one that's donating monthly to you, can they volunteer? Do you need volunteers? Are you canvassing?
I do. Now is the season. As we kick off into the new year, we'll begin doing a real field operation, which is going to require people to knock on doors and help with setup and tear down of events and phone banking once we get that up and running. So what people can do is they can go to my website, which is this, but without the first word. Just go there. There's a little form that says, reach out to the campaign and say you want to volunteer. We'll add you to the list. You'll end up start to get like newsletters and stuff. I try not to be spammy. A lot of people are like spamming every day. I don't do that. I don't send a bunch of text messages because I hate those as much as anybody else does. But we'll get the word out and get people to volunteer. And while waiting for me to call and say, hey, come down to, the debate or come help me at, set up this town hall. Between now and then, if you are dedicated to this campaign, the best thing you can do for me is find your social and family and friend network and spread the word and carry the message that this is winnable. We can't fall for the trap of calling it Tom Cole's seat or calling it a deep red state or saying we can't do this. If we keep saying that, it's going to keep being true. And get those people to spread the word, because what I need is attention, and the way that's going to happen. Because I've been on Blue Sky since before I retired. I was not political on there, but I had it. I still have less than 500 followers on Blue Sky. I have less than 500 followers on Threads. I have about 3,400 here on TikTok. This is where I'm doing best. That's only going to grow with people spreading the word of mouth, because I'm not going to do stunts, right? I'm not going to throw a baby into a lake and then save it on film to get attention. I'm going to do it the old-fashioned way and earn it. But people can help me by spreading the word. So please, if you want to volunteer for my campaign, the best thing you do is to say nice things about me and link videos. What am I supposed to say, Madison? Like, follow, share, smash that like button, clip me, do all those things that get the word out. And I think it's going to naturally happen, but I feel like the clock is really ticking. We're 151 days away from the primary. That's going to fly by like that. We really have to hustle and get some money in the coffers, because if we wait until I win the primary to start seriously fundraising, we will never catch up. And we're never going to catch up anyway. We're never going to have a fighting chance. We need to do it now. And just tell ourselves we've won. And if people are like, well, I don't know, what if he loses? Then donate half to me and half to my opponent. If that's holding you back, if that's the thing that's holding you back in the primary, then split it in half. Give me half, give him half, and whoever comes out on top at least have something.
Yeah. Oh, I love that idea.
If I'm that candidate, I wouldn't be sitting here. But don't sit on the sidelines, and don't tell me that you'll wait until you know who's going to win, who you're going to back. That doesn't impress me. That's just bandwagoning. That's like rooting for the It's like rooting for the Patriots when Tom Brady was there. Yeah, no shit.
Now, speaking of primaries, we have your primary opponent coming on, I think, in February.
Oh,
And
nice.
then we would like to send you guys an invitation to have a debate. So CD2 candidates came on last week before last.
Last
We'd
week.
love to have you guys come on. We do have to wait until
I'm
after
down
his
for sure.
interview.
I can't
But
speak
yeah,
for his campaign, but I wouldn't be surprised if he's down. We are doing a candidate forum on Saturday in Wayne, so we will be down there. From 4 o'clock is when it starts. I'm going to attempt to TikTok live it if my live stream works from the Votech down there, and I'll be on the other platform, the Book of Faces one. We're going to try and broadcast them both there. But if we're also looking for folks to be in the room, just be in the room and support us, because nothing feels better as a public speaker to have an audience in the room to kind of fire you up.
Right.
awesome. Did we cover everything? Do you have any last words before we close out?
I don't, other than thank you again for hosting this. I know that it takes work and coordination, and I really do appreciate your outreach to me and your accommodating my schedule. And I really, really, really want to thank you and anybody who's watching right now for caring. I mean, it would be easy to just, especially people with money and that aren't adversely directly affected by the terrible things that are happening, to just check out and say, hey, it doesn't impact me. You're not doing that. And I tell you what, that's the example we need to set. So thank you for setting such a great example of just being civic minded and caring.
Thank you so much for coming on. And we'll dance it out.
Okay.
You don't want to see me dance. Good night, y'all.
How's that? You can just kind of blend in.
Thanks, y'all. Good
Thank
night.
you, everybody.
Good
We
night.
appreciate it. Thank you, Jeff Pixley, and good luck.
Yes, good luck.
Good luck.
Thank
We'll
you.
see
I
you
might need it.
later. Bye.
You got it.
Got it. Okay.
Woo! Thank you all. And I think next week we have
Here we go. I loved him holding up the
John
piece of
Crystal.
paper, though. That was cool. I forget about
Yeah.
that.
Yeah,
He
that
came
was
prepared. I love it.
I know.
love it. All right, and don't forget, January 20th is walkout, 2 p.m. wherever you are. There's going to be several events going on in Oklahoma. One in Oklahoma City is going to be part of the national event, so you won't want to miss it. Downtown, marching to Super Bagel. All right, y'all have a great week, and we will see you next Wednesday right here.
Yay. Bye. Yay.